Marco Schneider, and as you know, this is our webinar on fire safety inspection during European Fire Safety Week. It's about the idea of moving towards European guidelines for fire safety inspections. We are conducting a project with Efectis and RISE. My name is Eugenio Quintieri. I'm the Managing Director of Fire Safe Europe, the organization representing fire safety, let's say, companies and professional organizations that would like to improve fire safety in buildings in Europe. So I will do Marcus.
Hey, thank you, Eugenio. Then again, for those who haven't been at the first attempt on this webinar, my name is Marco Schneider. I'm working for Hilti. I'm doing on a global level all the code regulation topic and all the work around that. So I have more than 30 years experience at Hilti, but mainly also on code regulation and all in standardization bodies. Yeah, again, a warm welcome from my side and good morning for this webinar. Really for me, and I said it before, to open this webinar about building fire safety inspections. It's a topic that is essential to ensure that our buildings are not only sustainable and efficient, but also really safe for the people who live and work in them. A building's fire safety depends on many interconnected elements. Design choices, product selections, construction installation quality, and ongoing maintenance. If any of these are neglected, the consequences can be severe. Fires can spread faster, evacuation routes may fail, systems designed to protect occupants may not function when needed. Inspections are therefore one of the most practical and effective tools to verify how fire safety performs in practice and after construction, during operation, and when buildings are renovated or maybe even changed. Yet, as we know, inspection systems in Europe are very diverse. Now, this is why Fire Safe Europe, together with RISE and Efectis, has launched a collaborative project to develop European guidelines for building fire safety inspections. It's important that it is not the intention to harmonize rules or regulations, but to create a shared reference framework, a set of voluntary practical guidelines that can support member states, inspection bodies, and also professionals in improving consistency, competence, and reporting. Establishing proper inspection guidelines across the entire fire safety application chain will not only improve life safety outcomes, it will also streamline processes, reduce delays, and ultimately save time and costs throughout the building construction lifecycle. I'm really looking forward to hear now today's presentations and the insights from the partners and practitioners involved. I'm sure the discussion will provide a strong basis for the next steps in shaping these European guidelines. Thank you all of you for joining, and I wish you a very, very productive and interesting session now. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Marcus, for the second presentation.
Absolutely.
It was asked in search if there was a slide running, but there was not. So I will now let's move to the subject. And I'm very happy to introduce Dr. Eric Guillaume, who is General Manager at Efectis. Eric leads one of Europe's most respected fire testing and fire safety engineering organization, and he advises public authorities in France and is active in international standardization, including ISO. So, Eric, I leave it to you for the presentation of the project.
Thank you, Eugenio. So, hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be here with you to present what we have done with RISE together on the development of common European guidelines for building fire safety inspection. So, for sure, it's a first brick, but you will understand what is the intent and what may be the future steps for that. So, let's move on to the first slide. So, what is the context? What are the challenges? At present time, we have building fires that continue to cause significant human and economic losses every year in Europe. We have different inspection practices which lead to inconsistent safety levels, or at least determination of inconsistent safety levels. And for sure, you will be in the middle of something that is between what is regulated, what is not regulated, what is regulated at national level, and what is regulated at European level. So what is the current situation? We see that some countries have robust frameworks for inspection, also lack of formal inspection systems. The focus is very often taken on active systems, and passive measures are very often under-inspected, but for sure it depends on how we build and the typology and the kind of buildings that is of concern. Another point that we highlighted that is very important is the competence. So especially the competence of the inspectors, the training, the reliability, it varies greatly across Europe. So that's why we had in mind the need of harmonization to ensure this minimum quality standard across Europe, to give each European citizen a way to have the same safety level, even if the regulation is not the same. So it means that you have to focus on real performance of the building instead of regulatory compliance for that. And so that's why we worked on clear structural inspection to improve this compliance with full transparency. So how we worked, the project objectives and the different steps. We assessed the current practices in Europe, and it included European Union, but also UK, Norway, and Turkey. And we compared several things. First one is regulatory inspection versus voluntary frameworks. So we have some voluntary frameworks. For example, when you buy a building, you may need to have a diagnostic of the safety level, not in the focus of regulatory compliance. Insurance companies also are a key player. And from all these aspects, we tried to identify the good practices and the critical gaps. To understand also the role of stakeholders, so which may differ in different jurisdictions. So the authorities, the fire brigades, insurance, consultants, and so on. Then the second step was to develop harmonized guidelines, so to define practical inspection protocols, to provide standardized checklists, and to address both passive and active measures and integrate them in the end to modern tools for building assessment. So this will be future steps for sure, but it has to be important to have something that works with the life of the building. And so the digital maquette of the building may be of great importance for that point. Then the third pillar of the project is dissemination. So we tested guidelines in several countries on new and on existing buildings. We validated the efficiency and the adaptability in real-world conditions. And we are sharing the results at the present time as the conference of today. And next step is probably the promotion of that for its future adoption by different stakeholders. If we go in deep with the methodology, so the phase one was the status quo assessment. So as I mentioned, we made a desktop study on several countries, and we identified the inspection regimes and the gaps. We collected also the best practices, because there are a lot of very good things that are done in different frameworks, and also we tried to take the best of all of that. Phase two was a guideline development and implementation. So we drafted the guidelines, we use that for pilot projects, and the first part, the dissemination. So for the dissemination, there's probably also a large part that is further steps on standardization, for example. What are the key findings of this step? So, as I already mentioned, a strong variability across Europe in the practice of these inspections, in the requirements, in the framework. Large variability in the competencies and training, so the need of harmonization of the certification of the inspectors. Some things exist, but in a national context, not necessarily in an international one. And there are also limited opportunities for inspector professional development. In terms of reporting, we saw inconsistent formats, which make difficult the comparison and limit the effectiveness. So it's difficult to speak in safety level. We speak just very often in compliance. And we, as I said previously, there's very often an overlook of some systems compared to others. So it may differ a little bit from one country to another, but compartmentation is a key part, fire suppression also, and both need to be checked properly. And so the need of European guidelines for the protocols and for the training and reporting. So there are several types of inspections that have been put on the light. So the inspections can be by scope. It can be holistic, taking overall building fire safety assessment. It can be targeted, focusing on specific features. For example, just the fire doors or just a specific item. It may be also driven by the driver, so regulatory. In many countries, you have regulatory compliance that is requested and inspected, especially at the construction, but it may be also at other stage of the life cycle of the building. You may have voluntary inspection, and you may have property protection inspections, like for insurance or commercial. And another kind of inspection, fire inspection, is driven by life cycle. So it can be at design phase, it can be at construction phase to check what is in place and is it conform to what has been designed, to conform also to the regulations. It can be at commissioning and it can be in operation. For the competence and quality, the certification and training of the inspectors vary largely in each country and in each kind of inspection. So there's a need for standardized, renewable qualifications. And for that, structured quality systems like ISO 17020 can be of great help to propose something that is structured. There's also a need of peer review and standardized report templates. So for further steps of such kind of research, probably the templates will be something that have to be issued. There's also a question of responsibility, which is very important. So the inspectors and the different stakeholders for that must understand legal and ethical duties and all that is related to independence and impartiality is crucial. Liability and negligence can have severe consequences for that. So what are the main steps? So the key steps for an inspection are to define the scope and the objectives, to review the documentation, identify the fire safety principles. There may be several principles. They may differ from one country to another, but as I said, the end goal is the performance, the real performance of the building. So then you have the step of the site visit and observations, the analysis of findings, and a plan of remediation. You cannot remediate to everything immediately, but you have to wait what are the priorities, what are the most impacting measures to progressive remediation. So what are the first one to do, the second one to do, and the objective is necessarily technico-economical, but it's also necessarily focusing on the impact of the measures. And for sure, it has to be already think about the next inspection and the cycle of all of that. It's not static. The building is living, so the inspection has to live with the building. The main components that we estimated that have to be reviewed. So there are the main blocks you see here, the external fire spread, especially what is a building envelope, facades and roofs, the means of escape, the internal fire spread, meaning lining, structure, compartmentation, all fire brigade access and facilities, the active systems in terms of detection, suppression and alarms, and the fire safety management itself, which is a key component for many buildings. Then I will present you two examples that we studied during this project. So the first one is a school, medium size. It's in Netherlands. It's a college in Netherlands. I anonymized the cases, but because they are here for illustration, but it's just to understand. This is a building of 3 stories, 6,000 square meters. The function is educational facility. And here we made an holistic fire safety inspection in operation phase. We checked at different points, and we reviewed so document and on-site, and only non-destructive. For sure, it was in use, and it was made with the guidelines that we produced. What we found, so it's a building that is recent, but we found some points. For example, the proof of conformity of some points was critical, including fire resistance of certain doors, in terms of gaps, in terms of test evidence. So typical things that an inspector can identify, but he has to have a good knowledge on fire doors, for example, to be able to check all of that. So we remain about the training and the limitations of the documentation of the extended applications, the qualification of doors, and so on. We identified also key points on external fire spread, on emergency lighting, on evacuation plan, and alarm maintenance report that was outdated. And we had additional examples, so I give just a selected example. So it's just not to alert everybody. It's very classical to find such kind of non-conformities in buildings, even in new buildings, but it's important to make the job and to make such kind of inspection. So we selected some other points that were identified. So I don't want to alert the population, just say that this diagnostic highlighted several points that can be remediated. So for this first inspection, what are the lessons that we learned? So the inspection was efficient. We identified critical safety gaps. We made the assessment in 1 day, 1 full day for the building. The documentation highlighted some missing or outdated permits, maintenance logs, and evacuation plans. So this highlights also the importance of this periodicity in terms of inspection. It helps us to validate the guidelines that we made, because we were able to identify this checklist and to propose recommendations in the end. And we recommended, for example, to have a regular reinspection of such building every 3 years, to improve the documentation control and maintenance follow-up, and to harmonize templates and clearer guidance for inspectors. So this is just one of the examples of all the inspections we made in the test phase. Another one is much larger. It's in France, but it's a building that is from an European institution in Strasbourg. And it's a public building in terms of law, compliant with French regulation. It's a big building, 7 floors, multiple renovations. So buildings that had a real life, I will say, from the 60s and with a massive renovation in 2010. We performed the inspection in August 2025. We made an holistic inspection plus documentation review. We checked at quite everything. You see the picture of, for example, the fire safety systems for this building. So you see fire-resistant cables with the different units, all a complete alarm system. So very, very big building. In fact, in the end, very complex in terms of safety management. And in the end, we used the pilot guide, and globally, it was a very good safety level for this building. It's normal because of the regulation, it has to be regularly inspected, this kind of building, and the design and the renovation were inspected during construction phase. But we identified still some points. So you have some examples. Some can be linked to the installation, some can be linked to the life of the building. So for fire doors, we saw some that were not closing properly, missing labels, missing seals, incomplete sealing of penetrations. When there was foam, it was poorly applied. So it highlights also the question of the installation. It's not only a question of qualification of the products. Every time it's also a qualification of the installers, even if it's a poor point of any fire safety system at present time. For facades, we identified also missing cavity barriers, excessive unprotected areas, defaults in the active systems, gaps of maintenance reports and logbooks. And again, I just mentioned that in any building you will find such kind of things. So it's really not dramatic. It just highlights that something has to be done regularly and to be checked in detail. So we made a remediation plan with some 3 levels of priorities, and the outcome was a structured checklist to identify these shortcomings and to identify the remediation. Lessons learned from this case, really, so we were able to apply the structured methodology. We were able to cover everything, including this inspection, visual inspection, document review. We were able to have a complete digital tool with different drawings, different plans, and all the pictures of the locations, the problems, and so on. So like a clear evidence base, it's fully traceable. The prioritization of the actions. We were able to have highlighted the need of a better documentation control, stronger requirements for fire door compliance and facade inspections, and regular reinspection necessarily, especially because of the complexity of the building and the different steps of renovation and the life of the building. It's a 50 years old building or 70 years old building. So I will say it's real life. So, and it makes a lot of different impacts with it. And it allows us to test the guide on a large complex public building. And honestly, it was very, very good to have this inspection with the building managers and the fire authority, because they were very happy in the end to the advices that were given and to the efficiency of the guide. What are the next steps now? We have been able to produce an harmonized Canva for guideline and to test it. We still have to work on the competencies, because here you imagine for these tests we had fully competent people, so we need to make that more accessible to everybody or to every inspector. So what is the level of qualification that may be requested in the future? We have to think about pilot projects, continue with this to validate in different contexts. And we have this dissemination to be done. It will help us to provide a common safety level, as I said, based on performance across Europe. Even if we have not the same regulations, we have the same problematic with fire. We have different technical solutions, but in the end, we have to reach an equivalent safety level. And so only performance-based inspection is a tool to assess that. Next step will be probably to harmonize and to produce standardized guides. We have to work on this point now. And I'm open to any question on all this aspect and presentation. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Eric. We already got a question in the Q&A, so just a reminder for our participants that they can ask questions in the Q&A box. So the question is, does the project provide comparative information on how individual countries, Spain in my case, perform in terms of building inspections?
Good question. So the objective was not to opposite regulations, for example. And as I said, some of the inspections were made in a voluntary base also. But for sure, we see, for example, that some countries adopted different strategies. I will say, for example, you have more perhaps a lot of smoke control in France, a lot of compartmentation in Germany, active systems in UK. So, in the end, if you look at first statistics, you have not necessarily a big issue with that, big differences. So it means that different solutions can lead to the equivalent safety level. So this is also what we wanted to catch, to be out of the regulatory compliance. So for sure we checked, but we really tried to focus on not doing conformity to regulation, but really checking the performance. So it was really the goal. Yeah.
Thank you, Eric. Then another question is on there is a clear focus on inspection of building interior, but did the inspection cover the building exteriors? So I can answer maybe to that. I don't know. Yeah, I think it is. We cover all the aspects, including facade and everything that is related to the building. So it's quite holistic in a way. Of course, maybe in our project we had a focus on passive fire protection, given the fact that there are gaps and that are also the most challenging to deliver and to carry out. There is another question on the timeline for delivery. Maybe Eric, you want to answer? Or
I think you.
So no, the guidelines. So we are now we have a draft of the guidelines and also some checklists, so that inspectors can use them when inspecting the building. So the idea is now we are, as Eric explained, we are testing them for different buildings to refine also. We're also trying to collect feedback from stakeholders on whether they work, whether there's something that's missing. So we are trying also to involve other stakeholders. The idea is to have kind of the guidelines next year. And then we will also see whether it will make sense to move to the standardization process, to see whether this can be the base for discussion for I would say standardized guidelines at European level, at international level, but of course it's up for discussion. I have a question: will the slides shared after the webinar? Yes, we will share them. Yeah.
A very important point, because I will say we will deliver something from the project, but after ideally it will be put in standardization. So you will have also improvements and comments from different stakeholders that may make an evolution of that. I think such kind of tool is needed, but it remains a tool or a set of tools. So I want to highlight also the importance of the education and training for that, because we highlighted this was a crucial point. And if you have a tool but not the right training, it will also be a problem. So it's very important to not dissociate the tool in terms of guideline of different points to assess and the question of training. So I think you cannot dissociate them.
Yeah. We have another question in the chat. Have you also inspected building safety metrics? In other words, the interaction between the various systems, such as the fire alarm system and the ventilation system or elevators in critical situations?
Yeah.
I think I can answer maybe to that in the sense that I think the systems, of course, are part of an holistic inspection. I think there you can do the minimum assessing, that all the elements that are in place. I think then if you need to move forward from that approach, you will not need an inspector, you will need an engineer, a fire safety engineer. So I think it is a bit more advanced, but I think as a basis, it's good. Then of course this can lead also to spin-offs and rollouts of this.
No, at least you can identify, for example, with a guide if there's a problem or not. And the remediation may request more than a simple plan, and may request, for example, an engineering study or something very specific. But the question is not evident because some points of that can be nationally regulated. For example, in some countries, you may have regulation on associativity, for example, of detection with fire alarm and with active systems like smoke control, but it's not in all countries, and all countries have not national rules for that. So it means if some countries put something, is that there's a need. But it can be also a trade barrier in some countries. So I take, for example, the question of associativity of fire safety systems. This is a question that is raised in several countries, but not in all. And it's not harmonized at European level at present time. So it gives you an idea of there's something, and the answer can be different in one country to another, and can be volunteer, or can be from the manufacturer, or can be from the regulation.
We'll take maybe the last two questions, and we move to the panel, because so have you analyzed whether the overall guidelines will differ depending on whether the national regulation of a country is performance or prescriptive based? And then are you focusing on checklists, or will you include a process description? In Norway, we have a national standard which describes a process for conducting fire safety inspections.
Yeah, so these are good questions. It's not evident to answer for sure. The inspector first thinks about what he knows, and what he knows is its national regulation. So a large part of the job was also to help the inspector to think wider and not regulation compliance. But for sure, there's a bias necessarily, and I think this is something that has to be done in the training of the inspectors to limit so much as possible the bias, because we are not in the regulatory compliance. We are really trying to be in performance based, and it's difficult because if you take different technical solutions, it's not evident to think in absolute safety level because it's presumed. You don't make a calculations and complete study of the building to see the real fire safety level. So it's really difficult. And I think the question of performance versus prescriptive based design is very important, because here the pattern may be very different in different countries that allow more or less fire safety engineering. And so that's why we tried also to focus on performance. But as I said, if you put all in compartmentation and not in active or not in smoke control, you took a specific way, you took a specific compliance, so you have to be coherent with your compliance scheme, and so you have to look at all the details for that, for sure, because it's your strategy. We don't want to say there are good or bad strategies. There are different strategies, and what do you do for each strategy to have a sufficient safety level is the question.
Okay. So thanks a lot, Eric. It was a pleasure having you here and presenting our joint work. We will now move to the panel discussion, and I will introduce all the panelists. So we have Anna Andersson-Carling, who is a senior fire officer with the Fire and Rescue Service for Southern Sweden. She's also secretary for the Federation of European Fire Officers and vice chair of the Swedish Association of Fire Officers. And she's a qualified fire protection engineer and has more than 25 years of experience in operational inspection and investigations. Then, hello, Anna. Then we have Johan Andersson. Johan is a senior researcher at RISE Fire Research and is also partner in our project. He has worked since 2012 on fire dynamics, facade, green roofs, batteries, and traveling fires. And he has been mapping current inspection practices across countries and helping identify structural gaps. Hello, Johan. We have Fabien Mortoraval, who is head of the fire protection business line at DECRA Group, and he coordinates an international inspection network and works on aligning inspection practice and risk prevention services across countries. Hello, Fabien. We have Kay Spott, who is technical manager at Promat, TEDx Group, and also member of FireSafe Europe. He works across R&D, public affairs, and standardization, and represent ethics and wider part of the construction products industry in platforms such as our organization, but also Construction Products Europe, SFPE, and European Association for Passive Fire Protection. Sondre Zakariasen, our last panelist, who is head of fire safety and risk at Storebrand, working from the insurance side on risk engineering. He's also active as an operational firefighter and teaches at the Norwegian Fire and Rescue Academy. And he breaches prevention, the insurance sector, and real work intervention. So, hello, everyone. I don't know if I can see. Yeah, just a second. But now I can see everybody. That's good. So, thanks a lot for joining us. I will start with Anna. So Anna, let's start with the fire service view. And the question is from the Swedish fire service perspective, how are building fire safety inspection conducted today, and what are the lessons that stand out in your opinion?
Yes, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Eugenio, for inviting me to talk to you about this issue. I saw that Sweden was or is one of the countries that you have studied, so maybe part of you already know what I'm going to say, but for the rest of you, I will give you short insights. I know also from what you have said before that there are many participants in fire safety. I mean, it's the insurance company, builders, the holders, the owner, the fire service, but today I will focus on the Swedish Fire and Rescue Services part in the fire inspection in Sweden. And in the law that governs the fire service, it says that the fire service, or actually it says the municipality is responsible for making sure that the fire safety is up to the level in the regulation, which should be reasonable and equivalent. So wherever you live in Sweden or work in Sweden, you should have equivalent fire safety, which is, it's hard to define what is equivalent then, but that's a good discussion. But it's the fire service that do the inspections, and it's regulated in the law. And then we have the support of our national agency, MSB, who has been passed on from the government to help us. And they both support us in a very good way, but they can also make regulations on where we do fire inspections and how often. They also have opened up for the possibility for us to choose, apart from what they have regulated, where we have to go within several, with a different periodicity, we can still choose other places to go. So for my fire and rescue service, which is in the south of Sweden, we're the third biggest in Sweden. So we have quite a few resources to do this. And we also, every year, we do a plan, like an inspection plan, where we decide where are we going to do inspections next year. How many inspectors do we have? What are their competence and so on. So there's a lot of things in this annual plan that we do. When I started 25 years ago, the plan was very, very precise, exactly which nursing homes, which school, everything was very detailed. And then a few years into my service, the pendulum went to the other way. It was just organizational, choose wherever you want, do whatever you feel, just make sure everything is safe. That was a bit hard for some of the fire and rescue services. So now the pendulum is going a little bit back, but still there are open possibilities for us to choose or to do differently. But our national agency, they support us with handbooks and about the process. So I think we are fairly, we have a good system. I think we are very supportive as a fire and rescue service in Sweden. And they talk a lot about both checking details, as you discussed before, also about the fire doors, do they close, don't they close, where are the evacuation signs and all of these things. But we also focus a lot on the organizational part of the fire safety, because many of our schools or nursing homes, hospitals, the staff is a part of the evacuation. So we cannot only look at the technical issues, we need to look very much at the organizational part. And that is extra or extremely important as we in the fire safety community organizational fire safety. So that's a big part in when we do fire inspections in my fire and rescue service, but also in Sweden as a total. So we follow the regulations from MSB and the handbooks, but we tend to prioritize in my fire service two areas or two issues that maybe it's not so common. It's the buildings where we have dwellings and apartments, because we know that the most people who die, we also see the figures in Europe, differs from 85 to 90% of those who dying in fires in homes. So we need to make sure that the fire safety in homes is up to standard. And of course, we don't walk into everybody's home, but we look at the common spaces in the dwelling apartment buildings. But we also inspect the owner of that building to make sure that they do their part in the fire safety. And the other thing I would like to highlight is that we do joint inspections with other authorities, meaning the tax authority, the police, the health and safety of the municipalities, the bailiff city planning office, where we go during the operation hours of those facilities, not in daytime. And those are unscheduled visits. So we do both schedule but also unscheduled visits to make sure that we visit the facilities when they're in operation. So those are the two things that my fire service has decided these are extra important for us to look into, except from all the things that we get from the national agency, of course. We find a lot of our hardest inspection cases are mostly those where we do unscheduled inspections, where we find people illegal living in facilities that are not supposed to be living facilities. We have trafficking and a lot of criminal activities, which we try to work together with the other authorities. And lessons learned, you asked for lessons learned. without going into details on how we do the inspection, because you already heard that part, I would say that it's important to regulate where you have to go, but also open up for the possibility to the Fire and Rescue Service to find out where do we have the biggest risks, because we know our community. We know where we need to do based on our risk analysis. You need to write, or we have learned that scheduled and unscheduled visits, they complement each other. We need to do organizational and technical parts. We also need to have tools to make sure that we, as a Fire and Rescue Service authority, can demand change. It's not enough to just say, well, it would be good if you could change this or this. You have to have the power to enforce the demands. And you have to support your inspectors. They have to have the good competence, but sometimes you have to take it up the chain of command that somebody else has to sign the inspection documents, because we, as many other countries, see problems with criminal activities where it is hard to be alone as a fire inspector. Then you need the support of the organization. Yeah, and then we have the agency. They support us in a very good way. So, I mean, I think that's some of the lessons learned.
Okay.
If that's
perfect. Thank
you. If you're happy with that, then I will stop there.
No, it was very interesting. I think it also shows an advanced system, also a system that adapts. As you say, it was different in the past, and that's why I think also our guidelines want to stay open and want to stay as, in a way, wide. Don't want to prescribe a one, a one-size-fits-all approach. And that I think it was good to have your experience. Thanks a lot, Anna. I will now move to Johan. Johan, you're an active member of our project, and you have been analyzing different regimes in Europe. And the question is, based on your European research and collaboration, how would you characterize current inspection practices? And can you give some examples from our joint project? Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Ingrid. Yes, this has been a very interesting project for me, learning a lot of what's happening around Europe. And we have seen that, as Eric described, there is quite a lot of different strategies for fire safety, difference in how to do it, difference in competencies, or requirement for competencies on inspections, rather. So there are many differences in the different countries, and this is also coming from that we have those very different strategies, the fire safety strategy, what we actually want to achieve, and how to make sure that is fulfilled. Some of the countries have a very risk-based approach, which means that you have to look at many different parts, as Anna described, for example, organization, or not only the technical parts. So I think the take-home message here is that there is a wide variety on inspections, what we actually do when we do inspections. So I have not done any inspections myself. I have reviewed documents on how to do it in different countries. So it's very interesting for me to hear from actual experience. So what would I like to conclude with is that, as you said, Eugenio, this document or this guidelines that we now are trying to develop have to be very open and flexible. I think that's crucial for them to be usable over the whole European Union. But I think it can make a good impact on fire safety. And I think it's also a difference in what you look at. For example, if it's active or passive protection, that varies a little bit. So I think we can achieve, I don't know if a higher level of fire safety, but we can actually, I would say that we would know that we have this fire safety we think we have. And I think that's a good approach. Then the regulations can go somewhere else, and you know, they can take care of, if there are problems, they can do something.
Thanks a lot, Johan, sharing also your insight from the project itself. Now, Case, let's try to bring also the construction industry angle, and from your experience, how are fire safety inspection carried out today, especially regarding passive fire protection? What works well? What are the main gaps?
Yes, thank you. And first of all, thanks for the invite, and congratulations, I suppose, to Efectis and RISE for pulling this document together and running the gauntlet with the inspections. Congrats also to Anna. I was a bit blown away by your introduction, and I was thinking, what can I add to this? And I was hoping, Eugenio, that you would put me last in the panel discussion, so to give me more time to prepare. No, seriously, maybe indeed the perspective from a producer of construction materials, and then perhaps also a bit of an anecdote from another sector, the maritime sector. And the angle I would like to take is that we are in the revision of the CPR, or actually we have a revised construction product regulation that seems to hint towards putting more responsibility, and rightfully so, on the producers, the manufacturers of construction products, also for the intended use of the products that we sell into the marketplace. Now, I'm also responsible for the other say areas of the world, and when I go there and what I experience, if you look at the European say realm of regulations and standards, we're not doing such a bad job. We have a good interaction with the European Commission. We have SAN producing very decent documents, and although the modus operandi and the bureaucracy in SAN is sometimes a bit slow, it does produce very good documents that are at the top, if not the actual top of international standardization. So I think we can be rather proud of that. And sometimes we have to kick the can and make sure that things actually progress and come into play. And that's where I think, and that was also hinted on by Eric, and I think also a little bit by Johan, we will try and use SAN to move this document forward and to make it available and accessible to as much European citizens and as much European stakeholders as possible. And that would be also beneficial to us as producers, because we do want to, if we use the term customer intimacy that we as producers many times hear from our management, and rightfully so. Well, how can you be intimate with your customer? That may be the wrong choice of words here, but I suppose you understand where I'm going at. So the customer has expectations as to what he or she actually bought, and how that can be properly installed, and how it performs in reality over time. And in order to make sure that we live up to these expectations, we have to make sure to consumers that we actually have inspection schemes, that actually what was designed was actually built in the building, and what it was maintained or not in a proper fashion. Or, as we are now moving into an area of recycling and reuse, if it can indeed be dismantled and then can indeed be reused. Yesterday there was a nice webinar organized by SFPE Europe, and in the same European Fire Safety Week, and there another Swedish example was reuse of fire-resistant doors. It is possible, but there is a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of difficulties that surround this recycling and reuse dismantled pieces of a building. So that does not seem to work that well. So you were asking what works well, what doesn't work well. I think the SAN modus operandi works reasonably well. I would, however, invite each and everyone, if you do think that it's possible to improve the modus operandi in SAN, then please actively partake, because we do need people that have expressed opinions on this to make, for example, this inspection guideline launch properly in SAN. What doesn't seem to work, for example, is how indeed we can look at a building and look at components that could potentially be recycled and reused. Or if you refurbish a building, an existing building, if you want to make changes in the use, you want to change an office into living quarters, then you would have to reassess what was actually installed. Well, then it would be nice if you have documentation there, right? So like a building logbook, what has actually been installed, what are the fire classifications of these products, and so forth. And that is sometimes missing as well. Exceptions do exist, and I suppose Anna can vouch to that. Sometimes a hospital is very well equipped with digital logbooks and whatnot, and sometimes in the same city the other hospital is not behaving as it perhaps should, and that's just perhaps in one city. Can you imagine what the situation is across the whole of Europe? So it would be good that we develop these tools, and if this guidance document is pointing each and every stakeholder into the direction of well, challenging perhaps us as producers, please provide the adequate information. Please make sure that it's transparent, and please also make sure that the mounting and fixing and installation instructions of these products are properly used and are documented.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a long-winded answer to what works well and what doesn't work well. And well, to summarize, I think with the European Commission being well aware that they have to leave, due to the subsidiarity principle, the levels of quality and support up to the member states, the tools that the inspectors and we perhaps as producers are confronted with, those should at least be harmonized as much as possible, so that we learn from experience in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
We leave it
No,
there.
I think,
So,
no, I think it was very interesting, and I think it highlights also two issues: why this project is important for our manufacturers and to our companies, because exactly you have a clear need to ensure that your products behave as they are supposed to behave, then in practice and in real life scenarios. And then you also have, I think something that was interesting for me is also to make sure that, inspection can be helped also by having more information about the building. You were talking about the digital building logbook, and I think this is also what we are trying to look at with our project. So thanks a lot, Case. So I will then now move to Fabien. So Fabien, you oversee inspection activities across several countries. So from DECRA's point of view, how consistent are fire safety inspection regimes in Europe, and what inconsistencies most affect reliability?
When you travel across Europe wearing the hat of an inspection body, you quickly notice something both reassuring and frustrating. Reassuring because everywhere the goal is the same, to protect lives and keep businesses running safely, but frustrating because the ways to reach that goal can be very different from one country to another. So on paper, every European country has a strong fire safety requirement for new buildings. Materials must comply with fire classification. System for detection or smoke control must be certified, and compliance is checked before the building opens. But once the building goes into operations, things start to diverge. So we have a different regime. In France, we have the Safety Commission, for example, with inspection every 3 to 5 years. It's a clear framework with a mandatory periodical inspection. In UK, we have the responsible person have to perform a fire risk assessment since 2005. And with the Building Safety Act, high-risk buildings are under stronger control. But there is no periodical inspection, no mandatory periodical inspection for all buildings in UK, for example. And we have different other countries like Denmark, which have chosen different way with a mix between a prescriptive and a performance-based and a risk regulation. So these differences are not necessarily a problem, but some of them directly affect the overall reliability of inspection. From my side, the first weak point is the passive fire protection. Active system, alarms, sprinklers are inspected regularly, but passive protection, fire doors, compartment walls, age, get modified during refurbishment, and are not always rechecked. So we end up with blocked fire doors or open cable penetration, for example, that no one noticed until the day of fire. The second weak point is the variation in inspector skills. In some countries, inspectors are certified and requalified, for example, in Portugal, by the National Emergency. In others, there is no formal qualification system. And as we all know, if the skills vary, the diagnosis vary too. And finally, the issue of frequency and responsibility. Some countries rely on periodic third-party inspection, others on a self-assessment only. For multinational owners, this patchwork makes it difficult to compare and to prioritize action between sites. This is, of course, in order to ensure the same level of security for their employees wherever they work in Europe. So from our experience at DECRA, the biggest differences don't come from the regulation themselves, but from how they are applied and monitored over time. When a client introduces an annual fire risk assessment with an action plan and a clear expression of a risk level, we see a real cultural shift. Small deviations are caught earlier, budget decisions are better justified, and passive fire safety gets back on the radar next to the active system. In those cases, inspection turns in a management tool, not just a compliance exercise.
Thanks, Fabian. It was, I think it was very interesting to, in a way, we have a kind of confirmation of what we have been observing during this months of the project, in which exactly what you say. It's a lot of different regimes, a lot of also different angles, sometimes structurally different. So certain things are easier than others, and like active fire protection compared to passive fire protection. But we need to make sure, that we ensure a consistent level of fire safety wherever you are, and a consistent level of inspections wherever you are in Europe. And I think it's very interesting to have your perspective as an inspection. But thanks a lot. Then we move to Sondre. So Sondre, insurances look at this through the risk prevention angle. And from the insurance point of view, what role could building fire safety inspection play in improving risk assessment and prevention?
Yes, thank you, Eugenio. I would say that it plays a huge role when it comes to, the better the quality the inspections are that are being made, the more accurate predictions we as an insurance company can make on, how much loss will we potentially have. Insurance companies, they need to figure out if everything goes wrong, if all the active and passive fire protection fails, how can a fire spread? What is the estimated maximum loss? And the more we know about the building we are actually insuring, the better predictions we can make. And that affects a lot of things. That affects, first of all, our reinsurance, because we also have insurance. The insurance companies, they need insurance from bigger companies. And the better quality we have on the fire inspections, the more accurate predictions we can make. And that affects the price. And that also affects the price for our customers, So this is a direct link. And this is also affects our, credibility. How accurate can we actually make the predictions? Because right now, it's random. And as Anna said, she talked about, you know, the fire services doing their risk service or their inspections. In Norway, we have the same thing, but it's random what background the inspectors have. You know, some of them may be fire engineers, but that's not always the case. And the same in insurance. You know, when I'm as a risk engineer, when I'm being sent out to inspect a building, my background, you know, my experience will affect how I look at that risk and what my focus will be. So I think clearer guidelines will affect insurance in a lot of ways, you know, especially when it comes to price and being able to make better, you know, predictability and risk assessments, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sondre. I think it's very interesting for us, you know, for to have the perspective of the insurance sector.
Yeah.
I think we need. In general, we are always for more cooperation between the insurance sector and our sector. I think we can improve. I think we have a mutual advantage to achieve. And I think it's interesting also what you said about the competences and the different backgrounds. That's why in our projects we are also trying to refine the guidelines, bringing different inspectors with different backgrounds, trying to make the same assessment of the same building, so that we can see whether the guidelines work for example, inspectors that have a different background, you know. So I think that was very interesting also to hear your perspective on this. Thanks.
Yeah, can I also just say one thing, you know? One thing I also think this will, you know, affect is how much guidance we can give to our customers, you know, the owners of the buildings, because that's also hugely important. That you know, there's a lot of regulations, there's a lot of laws that are, you know, put in place to, you know, prevent fire. But I think that the better inspections we can make, the better advice we can also give to our customers. You know, a lot of the times, you know, insurance companies have to be the one that are actually giving our customers, you know, some requirements, because, you know, the fire service, they cannot, you know, inspect every building. So I think that's also hugely important, that we can actually, you know, have an impact on, you know, training or guiding the owners and the users of the buildings. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sondre. Moving back to Anna. We have learned from you also that Sweden has a kind of mature system when it comes to inspections. So what design principles should European guidelines follow so that they support countries like Sweden that, let's say, have a mature system, and so that we don't interfere with your system, but at the same time, the guidelines can also support, for example, countries that need them, given the fact that the regimes are different, that the maturity of the systems are different. Thank you, Anna.
Yeah. Well, just to reply a little bit to Sondre's discussion, I mean, the fire and rescue service making a fire inspection, that's just a picture of how the fire safety is at that precise moment, because then something else happens. So it's not an okay stamp that this building is forever safe, you know. So it's a good point to educate also the owner, and that's why we think it's important in the guidelines to have the part where you say, well, it's good with all the technical systems, but also organizational, and as you say, also to make sure that the owner check their own buildings between the fire service rescue visits. But I mean, it's a balance, of course, between a more general part, but also detailed support in the guidelines. So I'd say it has to be both. And as I said, I'm from a big fire and rescue service, so I'm sure there are other fire and rescue services in Sweden who would be happy for guidelines. But I think there should be some kind of discussion also. Where is it needed to take place? Where do we need to put our focus, and not forget the apartment houses? that we need to be able to work on. A freedom to add based on the risk analysis, but also to give, to have the inspectors' competence needs to be raised. What kind of different competences do you need? Because we always do fire protection engineer from the university together, often with a more practical fire inspector coming from the fire service ranks of operational officers. But I would say cover both organizational and technical safety, but general, but also detailed when necessary.
Okay, thank you. I will now go to Johan again, asking which elements should common European guidelines prioritize to make outcomes comparable and actionable?
And that's a very good question, Eugenia. So wish list could include many things, but I think one of the most important things is some type of certification of the inspector, that we have education, have something that, or the people that do the inspections know what they should look for. What are the critical measures that they actually have to inspect? Because that would make, I think, an improvement in how accurate these inspections are in terms of fire safety. One other thing looking forward would perhaps be some type of digital record keeping, integrated BIM, where you can have your inspection protocols, you can have your remediation of the buildings, so everything is recorded and you know what has been done with photos and everything in one place.
Thanks, Johan. So go back to the importance of having a competent inspector, but also kind of in this case, a logbook of inspections, not of the building itself, but the kind of digital logbook of the inspections, so that we can also keep track of what has been and how, and that can be transferable. Okay, thanks a lot. Fabien, same topic from a practical inspection viewpoint. How could a common European guidelines strengthen the consistency and the clarity of safety assessments while remaining usable across different national regimes?
Yes, indeed, it's a tricky point. Each country has built its own cultures, its own rules, its own inspection practices. That's a strength. But this diversity sometimes makes it hard to get a clear overview, especially for companies or owners managing sites in several countries. So the point is not to make everything identical, is to make our assessment more comparable and more readable without losing what makes each national system unique. Today, from one country to another, the issue doesn't always mean the same things. So a common European approach could first help us align our vocabulary and agree on a shared scale of severity, not to create another layer of regulation, but simply so that a report written in Warsaw, in Madrid or Paris tells the same story to the European building manager. Then there is the inspection method itself. When we have a shared checklist covering essential points, escape routes, compartmentation, alarms, phone control, and so on, and daily safety management, this core inspection list creates a common foundation. And if all reports followed a simple shared structure, a summary of risk, a list of non-conformities, and an action plan, we'd gain a lot in clarity. So at DECRA, we can see how this kind of format really helps operators to prioritize their action and maintain safety over time, not just check a box for compliance. So of course, this can't happen overnight, but we could move forward gradually by starting with European guidelines simply and voluntary, by sharing experience and good practices through the Fire Information Exchange platform, for example, and by testing this approach on a few different buildings. We could build a common framework by practice before regulation, I think. So we all share the same ambition to make fire safety assessment reliable, comparable, and understandable for everyone. A common European approach wouldn't be a straitjacket from my side. It would simply give us a shared language, help us understand each other better, and let us grow better. The goal is not to impose a single model, it's to help every country assess better, prevent better, and protect better. In short, I win towards one compass, but different maps.
Thanks a lot, Fabien. It's inspiring, and it's also, I would say, it's in line with the survey results that we got in the first phase of our project, in which there was anyway a kind of strong support for European guidelines, as you say, voluntary and gradually implemented. But I think it is very much in line with the findings of our project and also what we believe as Fire Safe Europe. I will now revert to Case, always for the industry perspective. So, Case, what will be the key added value of common European guidelines for inspection from your point of view?
Thank you. And while inspiring contributions of the previous speakers, I'm again very, very happy and pleased to be on this panel, which is an esteemed company. The added value, I think, is that what we hope to achieve, and Eric and Johan are still on the call, but what we hope to achieve is a document where perhaps different countries or different stakeholders can just sort of cherry pick whatever fits to add to national existing modus operandi. I suppose it's best if, from a voluntary perspective, things are adopted nationally. And what I've heard and what I've seen from the previous speakers, that even in very well established say situations, either from the insurance perspective or from a country perspective, like Sweden or someone that does the inspections, there is still an appetite to learn and to improve. Well, with that attitude, I think in each and every country we can hope to add bits and pieces to it. And if it's like a recommendation or a suggestion where to look and how to look, or what to register and how to register it, and how to make it transparent. So there's different angles and different perspectives that you could use from the different stakeholders, and then use the document as a candy shop. That's a way of looking at it, and say this could potentially add to what we already have, or this could improve what we already have in our country, or for a specific type of buildings, or from a specific angle, as Sandra was saying, from the perspective of the insurance industry. So I guess there should be something in it for each and every one. And if we have missed something, that's maybe a call to action for each person on the call. If you know of something that we would have potentially missed, then please come forward and point us in the right direction, because who are we to know what is happening in every corner in Europe, right? Or even across the globe. And again, I forgot to introduce my anecdote from the other sector. The anecdote comes from the maritime sector, where we once had an inspection unannounced, Anna. So sometimes also we have unannounced inspections from the ship inspectorate, and they came to warn us about new legislation in the maritime sector, basically saying that there should be a transparent and accessible paper trail from the producer to the ship, and backwards from the ship to the producer. And that's already existing and working well in the maritime sector for decades. This should potentially also be in the built environment, and the inspection scheme no doubt helps for like tailwind to introduce that. So yeah, that's the anecdote from the other sector.
Thanks a lot, Case. Last question is for, and then we will go to the Q&A. I will ask Sondre, from the insurance point of view, do you see value in developing a European level guidelines, trying to ensure a consistent approach across member states?
Yeah, I do. And I would just like to say that one thing I've noticed, and this is my view, is that in Norway, we have a lot of focus on evacuation and getting people out of buildings. And that is the most important thing for sure. But I also think that we lack maybe focus on how to prevent, big fires, like fire spread, how to minimize, damage control. And I think that is something that I think we need to focus more on. And if we could have more like harmonized guidelines, I think that would help. And I would also like think that, more, knowledge and data on the materials that are being used in buildings, when it comes to insulation, when it comes to, materials used in the facades, in the roof. I think we have a lot to learn right here. Because what we see right now is that we're building, huge buildings, open, beautiful areas, but I think that we're lacking a lot of the passive fire, fire sections. They're gone, and sprinkle system, active systems are supposed to replace everything. It seems, from my perspective, and I think that's really. I think it's important that we can build modern buildings and implement all the knowledge we have. But I think there's also a really dangerous point right here. And from the insurance perspective, we see a lot of really big fires, huge damage on buildings that I think can be prevented. So first of all, I would say that sharing data. New products. We're evolving. We're getting new systems like, PV solar systems. We're getting energy storage systems in the buildings. There's a lot of new technology, and I think there's really important to see the whole building as a system, not just active and passive fire protection. So that's one point, Eugenio. And as I said, there's a lot of different backgrounds and competence of the people that are, doing the fire inspections. And that is, for me, that can be, pretty dangerous if you focus on just some areas. And for me, I think passive fire protection is hugely important. Penetration of, cables going through the walls, doors, being able to, see potential fire spread. And if we can have some common harmonized guidelines for that, a minimum training on how we should, do the inspections, I think that would be hugely beneficial. And knowledge is power. So sharing competence, I think that's probably the thing we need most.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean, I agree on everything. That's good. That's positive in the sense that, of course, I think we need more data from the building itself. I think, and especially on passive fire protection, we need more data because the active fire protection, I think you can easily check without destroying everything. Whether to understand what there is in a building from a passive fire protection point of view, sometimes you need to have destruction of things. You need to destroy things to inspect. So I think having the data beforehand and knowing how they've been installed and everything, that will be extremely beneficial. So thanks a lot. So we have. I will try now to have a look at the Q&A. So to have some questions that participants have asked. So I will go through the ones that have not been answered yet from our speakers. So Michaela from ANEC is asking, How do you foresee promoting the use of this guidance, since the CN standard will remain voluntary? I'm ensure that this is widely adopted and used to demonstrate its usefulness. But I think there, of course, I think the approach is to stay voluntary. So I don't think it will be beneficial for any system to have something that is mandated. I think you need to demonstrate its value than to have it more, I would say, widely adopted and used. And I think that's what we are trying to do today, and that's what we will also try to do in the future, also at the national level. I think it has to be a kind of document that will serve the ones that need it, and we need to show exactly this, so that it's needed for the ones that need it. So I have other questions. So there was the mentioning that there is this FRIDA system in Denmark for digital fire inspection. So that's good. Thank you for flagging this. Do the inspection include systems that are not fire protection systems, but are big fire hazards like PV system, battery charging, and lithium batteries? So we are discussing this. I don't know if any of the participants has experience on this and wants to share some. It's more on the inspection on the PV systems, on the big fire hazards like PV system, battery charging, lithium batteries.
Yes, Eugenio, I answered in the chat just at one point, is that at present time there's also still on the table the question of what shall be, for example, the compartmentation of an enclosure where you have a battery in a building. So these are things that are under consideration, that are not status now. But I hope that in the near future we will have at least answer, and it has to be considered in each national regulation after. So it's a part of the answer, I think.
Okay. I have another question now. What is more important between competence certification or knowledge and skills without certifications? So I think the question is between being a certified inspector or being a qualified inspector. Anybody wants to answer? So what is most relevant, to be a certified inspector or a qualified inspector?
So yeah, I suppose you can make a quadrant out of it. So you're certified, but you do not have knowledge, and you have knowledge, but you are not certified. So what is the best? I guess ideally you are certified and you do have knowledge. So I'm not sure it should be contradicting each other. So
certifying the competence, I think.
Yes. So, but I suppose it's a relevant question in the sense that we should continuously move towards bringing knowledge to the persons who are certified, and that means that we need to continue to collaborate. But it may also mean that in some countries, certification schemes will never become mandatory, or at least not on short notice. And then you have to rely on skills and competencies. So, but yeah, it would be, I guess we would all agree that certification does not warrant that the inspection will be done properly. So, but it's not the other way around. So we do not want to be against certification. So the only thing I guess each and everyone can agree on that if any inspection is done, it should be done by competent people, whether they are certified or not. Certified, as I think, is a bonus.
And
That's
also
just my view. Happy to stand corrected. Yeah.
How to
and also
demonstrate? Sorry. How to demonstrate the skills of a person without certification? It's also a question.
Yeah, and also the system that you work in, if you don't, you have to support you as an inspector. So if you are, for example, new, you don't have, you have the knowledge, but you don't have the competence that you have done it a lot of times. But then you need the support of someone else in your system. So I mean, the system wherever it's in a fire service or in an insurance company or in wherever the system needs to support the people working in the system so that they together can deliver a good inspection or a good product.
That's a good point, and I fully agree. So whether it's the actual individual that has all the skills and the competencies, probably not, because you should be able to rely on the the company or institute or facility that you're in to provide the tools necessary or to do checks and balances on what you've actually produced. So yeah, agree.
Very good point. Yes.
Okay. Any other comment in general from speakers, something that they would like to share that they have not had the chance to say?
I'd just like to add one thing, and that is that, I think every country see a lot of the common mistakes being made in buildings. And I think it's hugely important that this is obvious, but I think it's important to point it out that we work together because, as a firefighter, you see a lot of, potential hazards that are important for insurance companies to know. I also think that fire engineers, they have their own focus. They use the requirements and regulations to, make buildings that are, effective. But I also think it's important to learn from insurance companies when it comes to all the damage we see, and we see a lot of the same patterns being made. And I'm sure a roof in Sweden is pretty similar to a roof in Norway. So I think it's, sharing data is key. It's really important. So I just want to point that out.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's good to hear it from the insurance industry, because usually sometimes it's not so easy to access data because they are also commercial in a way. So there is always this kind of balance to strike. So that is also the problem sometimes with the data in our sector. But yeah, of course, that it's an amazing approach. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sondre. Okay, and just have a look. There was a question on how many inspectors participated in the test to cover both active and passive fire expertise. Eric, I think we had different inspectors and different competence, no?
Yeah. So because we have a team to manage the creation of the guidance, about 7 or 8 people from different countries, but for the inspections themselves, we enlarged to the teams. So it can be linked to the question of competencies. In the end, the competence and the certification of this competence, in my mind, has to be set on the organization, not on the individuals. Individuals are part of the quality management systems that assess that the company that makes the inspection is probably qualified to do that. But I think the responsibility has to come to the company in the end. And here, for this specific case, for example, when I take the example of the 2 buildings I presented, each time it was someone that was not involved in the project by itself, but involved in the test of the inspection. And for the 2 cases I presented, each time it was 1 inspector, but it was 1 qualified inspector, I will say. And to give you an idea, one that was the one that made the European institution building I highlighted was also formerly from a fire test lab on fire doors. So he had a good knowledge on the doors themselves, how they have to be marked, what are the gaps, and so on. And so it highlights also the need of very deep product qualification to identify some gaps. And that's why I mentioned it cannot be only under an individual responsibility, but very often for different points you may have more expertise that is given by specific skills. So that's why I focus on this question of responsibility at the company level.
Thanks a lot, Hek. So I think we are we're at the end of the webinar. So first of all, thanks to all of you, and sorry for the small delay of the meeting, but I think the discussion was very interesting, at least for me. It was, and I would like to thank all the speakers, Marcus, Eric, Anna, Johan, Fabian, Case, and Sondre, and everyone who joined us today. I think this concludes the session, and we wish you a very good continuation of the European Fire Safety Week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.